Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today on This Needs to Be Read. I'm your host, Catherine Jones, and you know why we're here, because it's all about books. But this fun book, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, this is going to be a great children's book. I can give it away at Christmas. You know what, guys, I'm always thinking about Christmas and giving someone a gift, especially if it's a book. But then when I sat down and read the book, it's not just for children. And as I told my guest today before we went on air, I already know where to apply this folktale in my own life. So not a kid's book only. It's called The Great Ball Game, How Bat Settles the Rivalry Between the Animals and the Birds. And at first reading the title, I was like, Bat, they're going to play a baseball game, but that's not even what it was about. It's talking about our differences and our sameness and how our differences can make us feel uncomfortable, but they also can make us more valuable in our community. So I'm going to give you that nugget for now, and I want to welcome Rebecca Sheir into the conversation. She is the host of a podcast, like I am a podcast host. She's the host of a podcast called Circle Round, and I'm excited about that. Join this conversation, Rebecca. Any other podcaster, I'm always excited to hear from another podcaster. So welcome on to This Needs to Be Read.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm thrilled to join you.
So tell me about the Great Ball Game. I know that people have, tales that they pass down from generation to generation, and I only thought that certain people groups called it folk tales, but I think as growing up, I think my parents may have told me some folk tales as well. And one of them and I thought about it as I'm getting ready for you today. It was a very short quote, but it always rings out when I think of it. And my dad would say, every time I leave my Bible home, I see a soul to save. And, if you want to get real heady about it, well, if you know your Bible, you don't need your Bible to give someone an encouraging word. But it always stood out in my head for a number of reasons. One, we didn't attend church regularly, and it just stood out because, that's just not how I perceived my family. But it's about being prepared. Every time I see something I need to get done, I don't have everything I need, in a sense. So that message is there. So they didn't call it folk tales, but I think it might have been a folk tale. But tell me about the Great Ball Game. Where did this come for you? Is this from childhood? Is this something that you learned like I learned today through someone like yourself? How did this folktale come up for you?
I found this folktale while researching stories for our podcast Circle Round, where we adapt age-old folktales from around the world into audio plays for modern audiences. And like you said about having messages, all of these folktales have messages, moral values they can teach about how we can be better people and make a better world. And as I was coming across versions of this story, I was so struck by its messages of the importance of diversity and inclusion and celebrating difference and how difference can make us stronger. And it's so interesting because this story goes back long, long ago. It originates among many indigenous peoples of North America. It's been told among the Creek, the Cherokee, the Ojibwe, the Menominee, and in fact, the illustrator of the book version is an Ojibwe woodland artist. His name is Joshua Powys Steckley. And in short, it's about the animals and birds, way back when the world was young and people weren't here yet. The animals and birds are arguing about who's better, who's best.
Right.
Well, let's settle it in a ball game. And then this character, Bat, shows up, and no one knows what to make of him or what team he should be on because he can't be a bird. He's got fur and teeth. And he can't be on the animal side because he has wings. And without giving away the ending, I'll just say that adventures ensue, and Bat teaches the animals and birds that we're all different, and different can be good. Different can be great. Without differences, what a boring world this would be.
And in the beginning, they used Bat's differences as a reason to not get picked for a team. And in that, I was never picked to be on anybody's team. When I say they got down to the last person, they just did without me. I would still be standing there not chosen. And I'm thinking, gosh, that kind of, it stunk. But I didn't have to be embarrassed by not being a good player either. But so I know what it feels like not to be chosen. So when Bat left after saying, well, and Bat was braver than me because I didn't have any, hey, here's some reasons why you should have me. He really sold himself. And they still were like, yeah, but you're different. So they couldn't use "you're not like me" because he was part like both teams. So when they couldn't use that anymore, they just kind of went right to it where you're just not like one of us, And they didn't have a good reason, and so he went away. And, I get frustrated with life waiting for it to happen, for the person to say, aha, Catherine had a point. And they may never, ever say my name. But to have that moment when everyone needed someone like that to be on their team because the games had gone on so long and they hadn't proved their point among each other, And when that got another chance to come out and to say, look at this, we're all the same because we're all different, and then started pointing out everybody's differences, and everyone could agree. So when I was thanking you for being a guest on the show and telling you what I got from it before we went on air, the part about, getting people to agree, and not getting people to agree for the sake of agreeing, not trying to persuade you to, just say yes to keep the peace, but we could both truly say yes to a thing and really mean it. And how do you ask those right questions or put people in the right situations where they can see it, where they discover the answer on their own? That's what I'm seeing as well. If I tell you this is better, you're going to find a reason why it's not, because what's the reason I'm pushing so hard for my thing to be better? As opposed to we both discovered this, and I discovered something and you discovered something. Now we've discovered together. How do we position a conversation to be a discovery as opposed to I'm better than you, I'm superior to you, I know more than you, and if you agree with me, you know that I'm right, I'm over you. No one wants to feel that. No one wants to even be perceived that way unless it's right, So this short, fun book taught a huge lesson, is teaching a huge lesson. So this book won't be a gift to anyone, not this one. I'd have to buy a separate copy so that they could have one, because I think that this quick reference is something that brings you back to, hey, I'm speaking to myself, hey, Catherine, you're having a frustrated moment right now. How do you get everybody at least in a conversation where they can hear? Because when people are opposing, they can't hear. Even if you're right, they can't hear. So how do we get people in a space where they can hear? So I thank you for finding this folktale in your research and sharing it with us on your book tour. So thank you twice for this.
Oh, well, thank you for reading the book, and I'm so glad it resonated so much with you. I hope it will resonate with readers all around the world.
Mm-hmm. And I do too. I think that spending time with our children, we may say, well, we don't have our own stories to tell. Well, I'm going to push back and say, think of any time you've repeated a story that when you start telling it, people who've heard it before already know that it's humorous, or they already know what the message is, and they're waiting for the new person to get that humor, that message, that lesson. You already have folk tales that you're sharing. And it's maybe because we don't know to write them down, because I'm going to always tell this story until I'm gone. We should consider writing them down, because these messages that we keep saying over and over are for a reason. You tell about a time you were embarrassed and how you got over it. You tell about a time that, you weren't a great cook, and you figured out how to be a better cook. Like, a folktale doesn't have to be so far removed from us. It's something that you share to deliver a message to someone. And it's a removed way. It's not me pointing a finger at Rebecca. It's not pointing a finger at me or anyone else. It's people we don't know, animals we don't know. And it's easier to hear someone else learn a lesson that we can glean from. But when we're directly pointed at, and the Bible does that too with parables, I realize that there is a different way to deliver an aha moment to people. So this, if you can't tell, Rebecca, this has been amazing for me. And I hope that This Needs to Be Read audience gets the same or even better message than I got from this. And my feelings weren't hurt, but I know I need to do something, and I know how to do it. And in the back of the book, you give a couple of options. I call them games of sorts, but the improv to yes game is really where I'm digging my heels in, because I want to get people's mind and let's warm up to saying yes. We're so used to saying no so fast, right? I know our time is up.
Far too often in this world, yeah.
Our time is up, and I've enjoyed this. I was afraid we weren't going to be able to fill our time, but, well, we did it. Tell people where you would like for them to pick up a copy of The Great Ball Game.
You can find The Great Ball Game wherever you get your books, and you can find Circle Round wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome sauce. And kudos to being another podcaster. Thank you so much for helping the world to be a better place. And much success on your book tour.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you for tuning in to This Needs to Be Said. I hope you've gained something from what has been shared. Send me your comments and show ideas through the website at tntbsmedia.com. I'd love to hear from you.